I teach zone nutrition, which is all about just learning to balance real food you can buy in the supermarket. There's no magic pills and potions, and there's no such thing as a free lunch, and I should have given this talk before lunch, really. And this is from Hippocrates, and it's so true. Our food should be our medicine, and our medicine should be our food. Because Dr. Sears, who developed the zone, he's a PhD in biochemistry from Boston, he says food is the most powerful drug you'll ever take by mouth, and that's absolutely true. So how many of you ate too much over Christmas? Your clothes are too tight. Your weight would be fine if you were just a bit taller. And what do you do about it? This keeps happening year after year, and you keep putting on weight. You may have health issues, you may have high blood pressure or high cholesterol, you may have diabetes. People don't know how much food they should eat, and they don't understand about food. And there's a lot of misinformation out there. So when you eat, you need to eat 3 things every time you eat. You need to eat protein, carbohydrates and fat. And I'll talk a bit about each one of these. So protein, it comes from anything that moves around. So it might be your beef and chicken and fish. It also includes some animal products such as eggs and milk and cheese. And the only protein that we count from vegetable products is soy. You can get protein from other products, but you don't. You tend to absorb them because they're so fibrous. You need protein. Once you turn 30, you start losing muscle mass. And that's just a fact. And what we're doing is learning to eat properly so that we protect our lean body mass and we protect our muscle mass. It's not a diet where people get thin and gaunt because they're losing weight but also losing muscle mass. And the beauty about eating in the zone is that you retain your muscle mass and you look vibrant and well. I'm a 62-year-old great-grandmother, and I think that I'm hanging together okay. So how much protein should you eat? Well, as a guide for a meal, that could be breakfast, lunch or dinner, if you're going out, use the palm of your hand. It should be the size and thickness of the palm of your hand. That's your hand without your fingers. So, if you're eating a white fish, because it's a lighter meat, you can have 1.5 times the size of the palm of your hand. And what happens is people tend to eat a lot of meat all at once, but they're not eating protein the rest of the time. The other thing we need are carbohydrates. Carbohydrates come from anything that grows, so that's your fruit and vegetables, and also derivatives such as pasta and bread. And there's lots of really good food out there. So all carbohydrates are composed of sugar. People talk about sugar and they talk about carbohydrates. They're the same thing. In your body, they will all turn to sugar in your bloodstream. They will all turn to glucose in your bloodstream. Some carbohydrates are better than others because they have they're not very high in sugar. Some have a lot of sugar. So some will spike your insulin levels and your blood sugar levels much more readily. And people say, oh yeah, but I eat brown rice. Doesn't matter. Rice is rice and rice is sugar. So this is just an idea of the various things that have the same quantity of sugar in them. You can eat 2 whole lettuces, 2 medium tomatoes, 1 cucumber. Those things all have the same amount of sugar in them. So does half a slice of toast, 1/5 of a cup of cooked rice, or 1/4 of a cup of pasta. They all have the same amount of sugar in them, and that sugar is going to go into your bloodstream. So it's whether you want to eat a whole big salad or you want to have half a slice of toast. The choice is yours. There's lots of good food out there. 250 grams of pasta is equivalent to a cup of sugar. And actually, technically, the sugar is better for you because sugar is partly glucose, which is blood sugar, and partly fructose. So it's got to be converted to sugar in your bloodstream before it goes into your bloodstream. So it's a bit slower into your bloodstream. But I mean, you're never going to sit down and eat a cup of sugar. And that's what pasta is equivalent to. This is what I really want to show you. So what happens here? People tend to have cereal and toast for breakfast, or a pasta meal at night. Your blood sugar spikes pretty quickly, particularly if you have pasta, which is just glucose, which is blood sugar held together with oxygen bonds. Then your pancreas starts pumping out insulin to get that sugar out of your bloodstream. And 2 hours after you've eaten, you usually want to put your head on the desk and go to sleep. Or your brain is saying, feed me now, I don't care what it is, but preferably something sweet. And people do this all day. They have toast and cereal for breakfast in the morning. They'll have a muffin for morning tea. They'll have sandwiches for lunch. They have a piece of cake in the afternoon because they're really hungry. And then at night you have a big meat meal. And so you're on this roller coaster. This is what happens all day. And what happens when you keep doing this is you start building up inflammatory responses in your body. You're building up underlying inflammation. That may manifest itself as asthma or allergies or arthritis. If you keep doing it, you may end up with high blood pressure or high cholesterol. You don't have to be fat to have those things, by the way. You know, there are thin people out there with high cholesterol and asthma, of course. And eventually you start damaging the receptors on your cells, and you need more and more, I keep pushing the wrong button here. You need more and more insulin to get that sugar out of your bloodstream. And in extreme cases, your pancreas says, well, I'm not going to do this anymore, and it stops functioning. And that's when you become diabetic. And diabetes is an awful disease. I mean, it affects your eyes, it affects your kidneys. You can end up with compromised limbs. It's a terrible disease, and it's preventable. Type 2 diabetes is preventable in this country, and we have a horrible rate of it. I see quite a lot of women with gestational diabetes who are sent to the clinic, who tell them dreadful stories about what's going to happen to them, and they come to me, and if I get their nutrition right, they can deliver a healthy baby naturally, full term, and it's just by controlling their food. And they don't have the consequences. So what we do in the zone is we eat a nice zone balanced breakfast when we get up. We eat all day. You have a wee snack before you go to bed, and everyone says, oh, what do you mean have a snack before you go to bed? It might just be a piece of cheese and a glass of wine. Oh, you know, that's a balanced snack. Could be half a cup of yogurt and some nuts, or a glass of milk. Yeah, I mean, life's for living. You've got to eat good food. I have at least one whiskey every night. And that means that you can also control your insulin levels all day. So you're not damaging your cells and damaging your body. It's all about good health. The bonus is weight loss if you need it, and not everybody needs to lose weight. And there's lots of good food out there. So the other thing we eat is fat. People are hung up on fat. It's not fat that makes you fat, it's sugar that makes you fat. Having said that, we don't sit down and eat copious amounts of fat. We eat a measured amount of fat, and we tend to eat good fats such as olives, olive oil, avocado, nuts. What's not to like about these things? But fat sends a message to your brain to say that you're full, and it slows down the uptake of sugar into your bloodstream. You know how fat clogs up pipes? Well, basically that's what it does. But you want to eat good fats. So it's all about eating good food. And if the worst comes to worst, you can always have a glass of champagne. I would recommend that you balance it with a bit of meat or a piece of cheese. I have a friend who, you know, I speak to him and I say, "How are you, Howard?" And he says, "Well, I'm 35 meals away from the zone. The only problem is if you don't do it, it doesn't work." But it's a lifestyle. It's not something you do just till you reach your goal weight. It's something you do to make you healthy and well, and you keep doing it. So that's all I'm going to say, and I wish you all well, and just have a think about what you're eating. Thank you. Well, we do, and it's not just the obvious sugars and things like fizzy drinks and cakes and biscuits, but it's, as I say, and things like bread and pasta, rice, potatoes, bananas, cereal. They're the worst sugars. Pizza is one of the worst things you can eat. You're absolutely right, and that's why New Zealand has one of the worst rates of diabetes in the world, one of the worst rates of obesity in the world, and so much ill health. When Helen Clark became Prime Minister, just during that election campaign, Jim Anderton came to us. He became Deputy Prime Minister, and he was very ill, and I said to my husband at the time, "God, I hope he doesn't die before the election." And he said to me, "Oh, don't worry," he said, by the election they won't be talking about the campaign, they'll be talking about the zone. And that was right, because he was interviewed on television. He said, "I'm the best living advertisement for the zone diet." But we went to the state opening of Parliament, and he introduced us to Helen Clark, and I said to her, "We could save this country millions in the health budget." And she just laughed and looked around the room and looked at Jonathan Hunt and said, "Well, yes, you could start with some of the people in here." And that's true. But, you know, at the end of the day, we never got anywhere. And what we've got is a very clear message based on very sound science that there's a lot of diets out there, but this is based on very good science. And yes, we eat too much sugar. We actually advocate eating between meals, but eating the right amount of food. And Dr. Sears, who developed the zone, said if you want to go out and eat a really good zone-balanced meal, go to a French restaurant. There's lots of good food out there.